Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan for our middle of the week Inside the Birds. The Eagles removed now from their 1-0 start with their win against the Packers. We've gone through that. For the middle of the week podcast, we do what we normally do. We talk about some transactions. We talk about some injuries. We look ahead a little bit to the next opponent and what they're going through. And in this episode, we're also going to give, because we've talked a little bit, Adam, about the intrigue of the NFC East this year. You got some new coaching staffs. You got a new quarterback. You got the highest paid quarterback in the league now in the NFC East. At one time it was Jalen Hurts. It's no longer Jalen Hurts, but I'd like that we're going to go through a little bit because some interesting things happened on week one. So
Yeah,
NFC East is
yeah,
fun.
yeah. Coordinator changes,
Mm-hmm.
coaching change with Washington, turmoil with the quarterback situation in terms of the Giants and them going on Hard Knocks and letting it known that they wanted to get Jaden Daniels, and Daniel Jones had a bad game, but Jaden Daniels didn't play great for Washington. He ran the ball well, but he didn't throw it well. We'll talk about that. Or they just couldn't get anything going in their pass game. Dallas has a win, but it's somewhat fraudulent. We'll get into that. We'll explain why. And by the way, this scheduling quirk with the Eagles is fascinating. They don't play an NFC East team to week 7. Their next 3 games are against NFC South opponents. Like, oh, how does that happen?
Meanwhile, right, you got the Giants and the Commanders about to duke it
Yeah,
out this
yeah, there you go.
weekend. Yeah, I mentioned this in the last week's the weekly the week 1 preview that I did, going through every single game. I said, if you're a rookie quarterback, first round pick rookie quarterback, and you're starting week 1, you do not want to face Todd Bowles like Jaden Daniels have to do. I mean, of all the defensive coordinators, Todd Bowles is the guy you do not want to face. And unfortunately, Jaden Daniels had to do that. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that when we get into the NFC East. But I felt bad for the kid. And Todd Bowles did Todd Bowles things. As
Yeah.
far as the Eagles, look, they're 1-0. Still got some injuries that we're paying a close look to. Before we dive into that, though, very excited that Quentin Michael and Jason Avant were back with Q&A. Hope everybody had a chance to listen to the pod. It came out Tuesday. For most weeks, it's going to come out Tuesday, just like it has in the past few years. They like to do their thing, see the game, see the tape Monday night, then give their thoughts, and it comes out Tuesday. So excellent stuff. They were revving to go, and it was, and not only did they have great insight, a few jokes in there, a few little wisecracks as they're apt to do.
Yeah, it's great to have the guys back, and but boy, and people were like falling over, so happy on the YouTube comments.
Mm-hmm.
They're waiting. They kept asking us. We said the guys will be back. We got to get it done, everything done and set up. And around 6 a.m. Eastern every Tuesday, it's going to be on every platform we have, and we got to have the guys back. So we got them back, thankfully, and we're happy to have them.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Eagles from an injury report and injury standpoint. First of all, because it's a Monday night game, Adam, they're not even going to start practice until tomorrow on Thursday. They'll have some coordinators speak today, I believe, but practice won't start until Thursday. And then you got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are the main practice days, obviously, for a Monday night game. And of course, they're playing the Falcons, who have less rest than them, even though it's a Monday night game, because the Falcons played on Sunday, whereas the Eagles haven't played last Friday.
Right. Now, remember, the Eagles had a short preparation week leading up to Green Bay, but you're right, they get more rest. Now, I'd be surprised if the guys weren't in the building at least and working. I'm sure they're working out, and maybe they had a walkthrough before, maybe they'll have a walkthrough before Thursday's practice. But yeah, no, the good thing coming out of the game, other than the win for them, was they did not list any injured players from the game. The 2 injuries we're monitoring, both on defense. Devin White that was the pop-up. He got hurt in practice last week. And Rodgers has had this hand injury for a bit. He's got to get cleared medically with a banged-up hand to be able to tackle and catch and do whatever you got to do. I'll be interested to see once he gets cleared, what his role is. We're still not sure, because the way they did in training camp is in base, it clearly was Slay and Mitchell. And then when they went to nickel, Rodgers went outside and Mitchell went inside. And of course, because Rodgers didn't play, I'm sure that had something to do with it. Mitchell played almost all of his snaps on the outside, with Maddox as the nickel corner, nickel DB, as
He's
as
the nickel,
Vic
right? Vic
Fangio
just
would
calls it
call
the
it.
nickel. A nickel is a
Yeah,
nickel. A
nickel. Yeah,
quarter
I'm
is a
sorry.
quarter.
Yeah, yeah. I need to clarify that. Yeah, nickel. Right, right. It's so I love it though. I'm glad he does that. So at
Mhm.
least we know the way he's thinking. But of course, whenever White gets cleared, it'll be fascinating to see. Do they keep Dean in there? You would think they would, but we don't know that yet. We know one guy's not coming out is Zach Bond, who was really good, but we'll find out more when we do the Inside the Tape show with Greg. Right, which will drop tonight, I think.
That well, our Patreon members, right? Yeah, no, it'll drop to the inside. Wait, inside the tape show,
Yes,
or I'm sorry, I was confusing that at first with the Ask Greg Cosell
yes,
live stream,
which
which
was
we did
last night.
last night. Yeah, inside the tape, that is Wednesday, right? So yeah, that is today. So our Patreon members will get it first, and then everybody else will get it after the next day,
Got it. The next
Thursday
morning.
morning. So
Right,
you're
right.
right. As far as I think the both injuries present a really interesting decision for Vic Fangio when they become healthy. Devin White is your highest paid linebacker. He was your guy that you signed in the offseason. Zach Bond played well. And I got to tell you, after watching all 22 and even having some discussions with people who've seen the tape, who know better than me, Nakobe Dean didn't play badly against the run. There were some big runs that we saw Josh Jacobs and Jaden Reed
Yeah.
have, but he actually made some really good downhill plays, especially in the red zone against the run. And I would say he was more of a positive than a negative in run defense. It was just a couple of coverage issues and then maybe one or two runs where a lot of the guys got blocked out or were out of position. So it is fascinating. We know, as you said, Zach Bond's not coming off the field
Hmm.
after the way he played. So what do
He
you
didn't.
do?
He didn't in
Right?
that game. He basically, I did. Did he play? I think. Let
Yeah,
me
I think
just
he
double
played
check.
all the snaps. I think you had pointed that out. No, wait. They
He
did play
did.
some.
He,
Yeah, he did. Right. He was
no,
even the
all
dime linebacker.
67.
Wow.
Wow, that's
Right.
crazy.
So what do you do with Devin White? I don't know. Hey, we prepared people for this. We told you don't just expect Devin White's going to be here and be a first round pick. He may not even start. I think we said that and got killed for it. But either way,
Yep.
that presents a very different, very interesting decision for Vic. And along with that, Adam Rodgers, you talk Isaiah Rodgers being healthy all summer for most of it. There was this sort of pseudo competition for about a week with Rodgers and Ringo. Then it became Rodgers on the outside, Quinion at nickel. You watch the tape, you watch it live. You have to think that we're all thinking the same thing. Vic Fangio is thinking that Avonte Maddox did not play very well, and he might be a liability out there for you in many ways. Coverage, run defense. At this point in his career, what do? Do you play Rodgers on the outside and move Quinion and nickel when you're in
No,
nickel?
no,
No.
no.
When do you play
There's
Rodgers then? Who do you play in
uh,
nickel? Or do you keep playing
well,
Cooper DeJean there?
to me, well, here's why you won't, because they're going to be a nickel team anyway.
Right.
They're going to be in sub. They're going to have 5 DBs on the field most of the time anyway.
So who's your nickel?
That's what I asked earlier. Should it be, or brought up? Should it be DeJean? We
Mm-hmm.
need to figure out. And him missing the 3 weeks kind of hurt him.
Right.
He's kind of had to learn early on here. So we'll find out. But Mitchell's an outside corner.
Well, how about calling it
Nobody's
a
drafted.
short-term solution? I mean, DeJean played, right?
He did.
As a dime. Okay. And then you get another extra week of practice, maybe for 2 weeks. As you're working DeJean into conditioning, you go in your nickel with Rodgers outside if he's ready, and Quinion as your nickel. But in base, Quinion's your outside. You just move him
Has to
inside
be.
in nickel.
But here's the thing, though. By the way, DeJean only played 6 snaps on defense. He played almost all special to 23 snaps on specials.
Mm-hmm.
But Quinion is an outside corner. In fact, when we'll talk more about this match, we're going to talk a little bit about Atlanta on the fourth segment, the final segment of the show. We got some good information there. But just say, you've got they're a little bit bigger with Drake London. So when they go man, when the Eagles go man, I know they won't play a lot of man, but when they go man, will be Slay on London, who's taller, or will be Mitchell. And the good thing is Eagles have tall corners, so
Right.
they'll be able to do that. So it's a chess match. We'll ask Greg when we do that show tonight what he thinks, but Mitchell's got to be primarily outside. That's just they have enough. See, it's one thing because Vic had said it months ago. He basically said, paraphrase, just reading into what he was saying, that because Cooper was out, DeJean was out, by necessity, they were playing Mitchell inside a bit. But DeJean's back. I know he was limited in this game because he had gotten back mid-August, so he still needs to learn the defense. But as you get through this group of receivers, Wait till Mike Evans comes in week 4. I know he didn't
Yeah.
have a good
No,
game.
I definitely understand your point. You
Yeah,
want Mitchell
yeah,
on the outside. I just
yeah.
think that, and I try not to make too much of week 1, but it was not pretty for Avonte Maddox. I'm not sure he's the
I
same
know.
player anymore. Maybe to your point, you can get DeJean and Maddox to split those nickel reps in week 2
Mhm.
because you're getting DeJean more practice this week. I don't know. Like we said, it will be fascinating to see what Vic says
Uh,
in his press conference and
yeah.
what he does Monday night.
I would just say this before we move on. I'll buy your point if they think two things. If they think DeJean's not ready to be the full-time nickel, A, and B, as you brought up, Maddox gave up some plays, obviously to Christian Watson in the red zone. Watson used his size,
Mhm.
and other plays that he gave up. If they think he's losing a step, then yes, then you got to do what you got to do, right?
Right.
And then that plays into, okay, when everybody's healthy, we're talking about Rodgers. Do you go back to the way you did it for a lot of training? Not all. They didn't do it all training camp, but they did it for quite a bit with in nickel, Mitchell inside and Rodgers on the outside. Or do they want to get Ringo? Had a good training camp, by the way. Yes, Rodgers beat him out for that top backup outside spot, which turned out to be a little bit more of a role than we anticipated because of DeJean's issue. So they got a lot of moving parts. Like you rather not have this going on. But the cool thing, in a weird way, it's a good problem because they have so many players this year comparatively to last year, where you're going, oh man, this group is not very good. They have bad depth. They got plenty of guys. That's not the problem. They just got to figure it out going forward.
Yeah, I don't normally feed into this philosophy because sometimes people try to say this with Eagles linebackers whenever they go out and get a free agent. They will say, "Well, anything got to be better than last year, right?" And it turns out,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
well, even a little better wasn't. I will say anything the Eagles have at D-back this year is better than last year. So I will definitely admit that. Whatever Vic decides to do, it may not be pretty, but it's gonna be better than it was last year. It
Well, the
has to
talent
be.
level, the
Yeah,
talent level is so much better, more
yeah, of
athleticism,
course.
and it just once they get everybody ready to go here, let's say by week 6, week 7, it's all defined. Because you're going to want that later in the season when they're making a playoff push, when the wins become more important. You've got some harder matchups. You later on in the season. You got you've got Dallas obviously in week 10 with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. The Rams, Nicole will eventually be back. You know, with the Rams with their passing game. In week 8, you assume that the Bengals will get their bleep together with Jamar Chase. That was disgraceful last week, how bad they
Mm,
looked.
yeah.
And in Cleveland, by the way, is very, excuse me, very deep at receiver. They look terrible. We'll get into that situation when we look over the NFC East. But the sooner they get this stuff settled, the better. But again, they have the depth and the talent. That ain't the problem this year.
Absolutely. All right, a couple transactions to go through. Nagata, I'm sorry, Joseph Nagata was waived off.
Ingata. Yeah.
Nagata, I thought it was Nagata. All right,
No, it's
Ngata.
Ingata. I thought it was like you did, but
Right,
when I asked the Eagles, they said it's Ingata. I'm like, well,
Ngata.
where's the I though? Okay.
Joseph Nagata Davida, baby, was waived off of IR last week with the injury settlement. Now he can re-sign with the team later this year, but obviously he is free. He's a free agent and he can go wherever he wants, assuming he clears waivers. Oh
He
no, he did
did. He
clear.
actually
Yeah,
cleared it.
now that he's cleared waivers, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do we know what the injury was? Was it an ankle?
I thought it was ankle, if I
Yeah.
remember. It was definitely lower leg. Yeah. So Nick Gates and EJ Jenkins were elevated for the Packers game. Every player in the regular season has a maximum of 3 elevations. So the team can only elevate Nick Gates and EJ Jenkins 2 more times before then they would have to make a decision, which, to assign them to the 53 or not. Then they can't elevate them after that anymore. So both those guys have 2 left. You would think that Gates especially would be elevated again. He's the only real true backup center who can snap the ball. We'll see on Jenkins, maybe Stoll for week 2 gets it this time. We'll know. We'll have to see. But obviously, Adam, with the loss of Dylan McMahon, he was their 6th round pick, correct?
Correct. Out of
Correct.
NC State, was it?
Yeah. Now he was signed. Yes, NC State, really good. He signed to the Rams practice. They're poor Rams, man. They are just
Oh, they're destroyed.
beat up. You would think it's week 11 for them, the way they're beat up on the
Well,
interior offensive line
yeah,
and edges.
they only have one of the 5 starters. Only have one in the lineup. Jonah Jackson,
Mm,
Avila's hurt, MCL sprain. Joe Noteboom got hurt, who had
mhm.
who had lost his starting job. a left tackle to Lark Jackson. Jackson got suspended for 2 games, so he's got to serve another one. Kevin Dotson got hurt, their right guard.
Ugh.
Havenstein didn't play in this game against Detroit. So here's the thing: what I find fascinating, they can't be serious. Like I know they have a rookie center, it's Kid Limmer, but
Mhm.
I know the Eagles were going to cross train McMahon to eventually play guard as well. You and I know that he's too small, but right now they need a center. So they can't be like again. They signed him off the practice squad. He's on the 53. Look, he may dress this week, and if somebody gets hurt, maybe he plays. Like this is crazy. I mean, I'm telling you, when I first saw him, I didn't. I remember watching him in drills. You know, in when they're pushing the sled, like a player will hold the sled for the guy who's pushing the sled.
Yeah.
I couldn't see the number. I'm like, who's this full Eagles don't have a fullback? Who is this guy? It's Dylan McMahon, number 63. I was like, oh my, no, oh my God.
Oh
I'm like,
man.
yeah, he is small. So a former he cleared waivers, remember? They waived him. He nobody claimed him. And now he was on their practice squad after being cleared, and the Rams just signed him to the 53, man. That is okay, good luck. We'll see. Never
Well,
know.
you know what they say, man. Desperate times call for extreme measures, and that would be one of
Who are
them.
they playing this week?
The Rams, who are they playing this way? I thought they had an interesting matchup, but now I don't. It's not Arizona, is it?
It is. They play at the Cardinals, who blew that game. The Cardinals did not play well, but the Bills kept shooting themselves in the foot. The Cardinals couldn't move the football. They were anemic. I got a friend of mine who happened to be in that game.
Yeah.
It said that the Cardinals' offense was pathetic.
I mean,
It
how
just,
does Marvin Harrison
you
Jr.
know,
get what is it? One catch for 4 yards?
it was
Was
bad.
it something like
Yeah,
that crazy?
one of three. One, yeah, it was embarrassing. And
I was shocked. And Matthew Stafford, to your point, I mean, he got butchered by that line. He really, I mean, Matthew Stafford's incredible. I mean, he took a lot of hits and kept firing and kept firing. But man, I don't know if he can. The Rams were my sort of surprise team. I had them winning the NFC West because I thought maybe
did you?
I thought the 49ers just
Oh
had
my!
way too much drama going on. And
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I know. Well, also just I wasn't sure Ayuk was going to be on them at the time.
Yeah, not just that. Ayuk, they didn't need to be a factor because they Jake Moody, the kicker. If you went against him in fantasy, I think he got like 20 some odd points. But
No, my friend, I had him in fantasy and
oh,
won
good for
because of
you.
him. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. But no, the Rams are so beat up, and I
Yep.
give Cooper Kupp is incredible in that game with the 21 targets. I give Stafford credit and then the Rams credit. That game went into overtime,
Mm-hmm.
so they pushed them there. But the problem that I have is in the secondary. Like they're not very good at corner, and Jameson Williams took them to the woodshed. I mean, he had 2 huge plays, including a 52-yard touchdown.
Yeah, could be a big year for him. He's gonna have a
He
breakout
is.
year,
He
I
just
feel
had to
it.
grow up a little bit, but he's super talented. And the Packers, who hey, that was my upset special to pick the Packers to win the NFC North. No, you can't count on a quarterback to get hurt. But I got to tell you, I don't know it was the defense coordinator's first game, but I was so disappointed. I'm like the Jordan Love, I waved I got the pom poms out for him. He did not play well against the Eagles. I was so disappointed. He just didn't play well.
He didn't. And watching on the all 20, I know guys were slipping, so I'll
Yeah.
give
How did that look for
everybody
you?
a little
By
bit
the
of
way,
grace.
when you watched that, how bad was it?
The slipping,
Yeah.
bad. There were so you got to see more. Like when you watch the all there were more linemen, like offensive and defensive linemen falling than you might have originally realized. Like there's a play, we'll probably get into it, not in this with Greg, but like I think it was the touchdown to AJ Brown, where it looks like Mekhi Becton just pancakes Ken Clark, a really good defensive tackle, Kenny
Yeah.
Clark. But I wasn't sure if Kenny Clark just slipped and fell, and then Becton, was able to just jump on top of him, or if that was Mekhi really pancake him to the ground because there were so many people losing their footing. And it was weird how he went down to the ground so quickly. So sometimes you can't tell if a guy's slipping on that field or just,
Right.
getting blocked, but it was pretty bad. There were good, like Josh Jacobs had a really nice run at the end of it. He was like sliding feet forward. Like I'm
That's
amazed.
ridiculous. Are you serious?
I'm
I didn't
amazed there were not more injuries.
exactly what I was going to say. It's like that's embarrassing.
Yeah.
I don't see you heard during the broadcast how they said like the feedback they got is the field was good, very good the day before. I know it's
Hmm.
humid that night on Friday night, but I mean, come
Hmm.
on, man. It's not like they don't have soccer there when it's humid. And that's not, I'm
Right.
sure that wasn't happening. Now, obviously, the I know the players brought different type cleats, but maybe it didn't even matter what type of cleats you have. Maybe you have to wear soccer cleats for these games. It's ridiculous.
I know that they talked on the broadcast about changing cleats like several different times. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point, I don't know what you do, but
Yeah.
yeah, good point. All right, so again, we'll talk to Greg about some of these things, and we already did. You know, obviously our Patreon members had a chance to ask him a lot of questions in the Ask Greg Cosell live stream that we had Tuesday night. If you want to get on this, you really need to, because you get everything first, but then you also get to directly ask Greg your questions that maybe you and things like Adam and I don't think of. You got to be part of Patreon. It's patreon.com/inside the birds to sign up.
Right. And we should mention that that's exclusive to Patreon. You don't get access. If you're not a Patreon member, you don't get Greg. So
Right.
live like that. And we have a live stream tonight at 8 o'clock, as we do every Wednesday. Uh, mostly all year we do this live stream. We put a lot of good information that we don't talk about here on our shows during the morning. So you want to go there, as you said, patreon.com/inside the birds. If you want to sign up, and boy, it is interesting when you're in a Zoom room when it's packed, man. It's pretty cool. It's good to see a lot of people there.
Yes, and just to add in, just so that people aren't confused, we have three different tiers. Obviously, Ask Greg Cosell, you have to be a tier 3 member to get in. It's all explained on our Patreon page, but just make sure you're signing up for the correct tier and you know what comes with it when you go to patreon.com/inside the birds. All right, we're going to get into a little other NFC East conversation, Adam. But before we do that, I'm excited for Eagles fans. You know, they didn't get the home game. They lost it to Brazil, but they do come home Monday night. And there is nothing like a Monday night, a prime time game in South Philadelphia at the Link. That is an experience unlike any other. Anybody who's ever been to one knows. And I know a lot of people can have that experience, whether it's against the Falcons or later this year, and you can get great tickets to these games or a college game or a Phillies game or a concert or a show using the Game Time app. We keep telling you about the new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting to the tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out all the fluff and it only shows you the best deals on the best seats. So you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And you're going to want to use that, especially when you get to the Phillies playoff games and you know you don't want to be sitting up in the nosebleeds. You got a couple of extra bucks to spend and you want to treat yourself. They've got the super deals that and other tiers of great deals that just will tell you what zone you want to sit in, what area, and where the best values are. And that is one of the best functions and features of the Game Time app, along with seeing the view from your seat before you buy, the lowest price guarantee. If you don't get the lowest price, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. And remember, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They've got their event cancellation protection and job loss protection as well. My favorite, the all-in pricing, where it shows you what the total price is going to be before you get to checkout, and then you find that you got all these hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets or sports tickets or theater tickets, comedy tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code BIRDS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code BIRDS, BIRDS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's go into the NFC East. We said we were going to talk about that a little bit. I got to tell you, I want to start with the Giants. Uh, they are an embarrassment to the NFL, and I try not to make too much of Week 1. I actually stupidly thought that they were gonna, with a home game, with all this juice they got with Malik Neighbors, with Daniel
Yeah.
Jones out to prove himself, with getting Brian Burns and adding that to Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence and Olajari being held. I actually thought the Giants were going to win that game going into the weekend because I'm not a big Sam Darnold guy, and I thought, he's going back to a stadium he failed in. How I couldn't have been more wrong. the Giants were awful. Maybe it was just a bad week one, but I can't. They were just embarrassing, Adam. Embarrassing.
Yeah, they were anemic on offense. And I know that Brian Flores is phenomenal as a D coordinator, one of the top three coordinators in the NFL. It's always hard. No matter who he has at cornerback, he's got Stephon Gilmore, who might be a Hall of Famer someday, and Byron Murphy, who signed last year
Mhm.
as a free agent. This is the debut of Andrew Van Ginkel. Had a couple big plays, by the way, coming off the broken foot from last season. Blake Cashman, who we know the Eagles had some interest in. He's now starting at inside backer for the Vikings. But it doesn't seem to matter whoever Flores works with on defense. He did a great job and very disappointed. Daboll, by the way, Brian Daboll took back the play calling from Mike Kafka, which he did at times last year. Didn't work in this game, that's for sure. And the thing that I know that disappoints the Giants is that they have these three new offensive linemen: John Runyon Jr. at left guard, Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle, and Greg Van Roten, who's kind of a journeyman, but has had some good tape over the years. It's been a great story from the University of Pennsylvania. They finally got Andrew Thomas healthy, and that terrible hamstring problem was hurt majority of last season. John Michael Schmidt's in the second year. They were hoping that it would look better, and they had all sorts of problems. Daniel Jones struggled. Their defense was put in a tough position. So
Yeah.
again, the NFC East, and we'll get to Washington in a minute. What the Giants, I gave them a win range of 6-7. Maybe I was too high on that. Like you said, it's only one game, and I expect their defense to be better.
Yeah.
But the Giants have problems with their secondary at corner. They're not very good there. Nick McLeod starting, who should not be starting. Oof, boy, it's not a free win when you face the Giants, but man, they were bad. Bad football is real. I watched too much of that game. That was really bad.
I mean, how do you let Aaron Jones average almost 7 yards a rush? I mean, come on.
Still
Come
good.
on.
Still good
You're
player.
at home. How do you get the ball to Malik Neighbor as well? Even his targets? I thought he would have 12 to 14 targets like Cooper Kupp had 20, right? He had 7. Okay. Wandale Robinson has 12. Are you kidding me?
Check
Like, what
downs.
is
There's
going
a
on
ton
over
of.
there?
Think about this: 42 pass attempts, right? For Daniel Jones. Oh, he probably had what, 290, 300? No, he had 186. Okay,
That is unbelievable.
it's embarrassing. And Devin Singletary is a quality backup running back who had a career year as a starter with Houston. Houston
Mhm.
didn't want him back.
Right.
He's not explosive.
Right.
He's a nice 1A back. He's not a starter. You don't want him. He's not explosive. He's just a grinder.
Yep.
I know
Yeah.
coaches like working with him. He's a pretty good dude, but man, he's not good enough. See, this is another situation. Coaches and front office people like to sign players that they were with, or they know. Well, they were Shane and Dable with Singletary in Buffalo. Well, it's just not good enough.
I agree.
This is just not. Yeah,
They shouldn't be the worst team in the NFL. They're not good, but they shouldn't be the worst
I
team in
agree.
the NFL, but they might
Yeah.
be. They might just wind up being the worst team in the NFL when it's all said and done.
Well, Carolina. I don't think Carolina's going to be challenged for that.
Well, that's a good point too. That's a good. Thank God we're not going into the NFC South because that was ugly too. But man, that's what I'm saying. Like the Giants should be better than Carolina. They should be better than the Raiders. But there's just
It's one
that
game
was perplexing.
again,
I know. I'm trying not to get to the one
but they look terrible. No, but your point is well taken. You got to show up, make the game competitive. I mean, they're terrible. I mean, they've been bad. See, for decades they were so good. If you go back to the 80s and 90s, obviously with Parcells, and then in mid 2000s with Coughlin. But man, the last 10 years, I mean, it has been at the end of Eli's career, as you know, he struggled with injuries and so forth, and it's been a struggle bus, man. It's bad football. I wish I didn't have to watch a lot of that game. I must like pain. That was really bad. Anyway.
It was. So they'll get the Commanders this week. The Commanders
Yeah.
also, as we mentioned, lost their first game. They had to go to Tampa Bay. Hey, look, credit Tampa Bay. They scored 37 points. We talked about them having a new offensive coordinator and losing Dave Canales to what would that be like? Baker throws 4 touchdowns. Bucky Irving emerges. If he's a name people have mentioned as like watch out for because Rashad White really isn't that efficient of a running back. But Washington, I mean, you just knew Jaden Daniels going up against Todd Bowles was going to be a difficult matchup. He ran the. I know he had 88 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, so the box score might say a look good debut, but 184 yards. I don't think he got the ball to McLaurin very well.
No.
Nobody had more than 52 yards. In fact, no receiver Zach Ertz led all pass catchers with 28 yards. So that just tells you the struggles that they had
That's
in the past
bad.
game. Yeah.
And
And by the way,
we
Jaden did fumble 3 times. I don't know how many he
That's
lost.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cliff Kingsbury's quarterbacks will run the ball inside
Mhm.
the red zone. That he's really big on that, going back to Mahomes, believe it or not, at Texas Tech. But Olamide Zaccheaus, I give the guy credit. I know he had a great training camp. He cannot be a starting NFL receiver. That just can't happen.
Yeah.
You've got a rookie quarterback, and this is your answer. Like that's just not good enough. That
I think, yeah, I think it's only a matter of time for McCaffrey, Luke McCaffrey there.
yeah.
He had 3 targets. Zacchaeus had
Sure.
3 targets. So I'm sure they were kind of testing both out. But I mean, Jamison Crowder is a returner at this point of his career, if that. So I agree with you. They need a little bit more youth and athleticism at that spot. It's going to
De'Ami
be
Brown's their
McCaffrey.
non-route runner, but yeah, they'll address this. Their offensive line's okay.
Yeah.
Brian Robinson's is a nice back. Here's the problem that they have. Pass rush, right? Cleveland Farrell, a former first round bust for the Raiders. He really revived his career last year with the Niners, playing the wide nine. It really had a good season for him. He did a nice job. Definitely revived his. He showed he can play in the league. It's just we can debate whether he should be starting. Dorrance Armstrong was always a good story of development for Dallas. He's with Washington because of Dan Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
And so is Dante Fowler, formerly of Dallas as well. But they don't have a high-end edge rusher. They traded both of them last year.
Yep. Yep.
Playing Jamin Davis.
I think you said they were going to use Jamin Davis there, right?
Yeah,
We'll
he's
see
an
how
edge
that
rusher
comes out.
now,
Yeah.
which you can do. You can move him around because he's explosive. Frankie Louvu could rush, but they're just not good enough. And in the back end, they have real problems at corner. Forbes has not worked out. St. Juice is a decent player. He's got good size.
Yeah.
They another DQ guy, Noah Igbahogany, who's a former first-round bust for the Dolphins, is there, who's never worked out. Jeremy Chin, who after an unbelievable rookie season has been on the downward slide. He's at safety with Quan Martin, who's I know is really talented. Sam Strill's really talented. He's their nickel, but you don't have a high-end corner. It's hard to compete. And Bobby Wagner, of course, is there, who'll probably be a Hall of Famer, but it's just a lack of playmakers and high-end talent. They're another team. Their best players are Payne, who's great, and Jonathan Allen, that's fine. And unfortunately, Johnny Newton had the foot injury, so he's just getting back. But this is again, it's a two-team race. It's the Eagles and the Cowboys. I know we don't want to go crazy for week one, but it's so obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, will Washington be better? If they had a better receiving core, I'd feel better about Daniels being able to take a big step. And we'll see what Ben Sinnott does at tight end, who didn't really do anything in his first game. But
Yeah, I mean, I expect this out of Washington, right? Like they need to grow. They have a lot of new parts. They're facing a Bucks defense that's very good.
yep, on the
So,
road. Yeah.
we'll see how this weekend matchup goes against the Giants. It's just it's probably not going to look pretty, to be honest with you.
It's good
But
for the Eagles.
yeah, great for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And I would say as we move on to the Cowboys, Adam, maybe the most impressive win of the week. Cleveland is Cleveland, and I know they're struggling right now at quarterback, especially, but they went in to Cleveland and Dak Prescott looked really good. I know the score is 33-17. It was really 33-10, right? I mean, the Jerome Ford touchdown at the end of the game was nothing. So the Cowboys dominated that, and Brandon Cooks sort of stepped up as they need like more as Jake Ferguson's hurt. We'll see how that affected them,
Yeah.
but nice to see Brandon Cook for them to get a touchdown.
Well, here's why Dallas handled them. First of all, Cleveland was without both tackles.
Both tackles,
okay?
right.
That's number one. Okay.
Mm.
You can't win. It's really hard to have. Well, it's really hard to win without that. You don't have Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford's a pretty good backup, but he's not Nick Chubb. Then Njoku has a bad ankle injury. He was off to a good start, then he gets hurt. Well, yeah, I'm not absolving Watson. He was awful,
Yeah.
but he had no protection. They're in trouble. You can't. I know they gave up 33 points, but it's not like Prescott went off. He had under 200 yards and 32 attempts. It's just that Cleveland couldn't do anything. They were inept offensively, and they handed Dallas this game. This was an easy call. And I on Sports Grid, I pick games, and this is one I'm like, this is the Scott Farrell hosts the show. We were very big on Dallas. What I told them I could do, they're really beat up on their offensive line. I don't know how they're going to handle it. They didn't handle it well last year, and their over/under total for the season was 8.5, and I really like the over/under total. I thought they could get 9 or 10 wins. I don't know about that. That this is only game one, but the other thing is they didn't resign
Well, how long
Flacco.
are real quick? How long are I guess Willis is out at left tackle, right? And
Yep, he's
yeah,
out.
I forget who their right tackle is, but I
Jack
know they're
Conklin, who was supposed to play, he
right,
wound up not
right.
playing. In fact,
Yeah.
they were talking about playing him at left tackle, which he played earlier in his career.
Hmm.
But that's bad, man. It's
Yeah, because they had to play
tough deal,
Effetti.
man.
Effetti
What's
is
that?
not. Effetti has never been a very good tackle, and he's really not a good tackle anymore. Jermaine Effetti, he played right.
Oh yeah, Jermaine Ifedi. Yeah,
Right, yeah.
yeah. No, wait, is he there? No, no, no. It was they played James Hudson, who's been there a while, and Dewan Jones, the massive tackle.
Why did I think
I don't-
Effetti was playing for them? Okay, my fault.
no. Yeah,
Either way,
yeah.
they did. They were banged up at tackle, and it showed.
It's
And I agree.
bad,
I'm
man.
worried about you with that team. Like they could implode pretty quickly if they don't get healthy and get their stuff together.
They got
They're not in an easy division
no,
where
it's the
you know what I'm
toughest.
saying.
The toughest, man.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about Atlanta a little later, man. I mean, Pittsburgh's brought their defense. They brought the kitchen sink at Kirk Cousins. That Atlanta was totally inept. They got a free 7 points.
Hmm.
But just finishing this off, it's kind of a fraudulent win in that Cleveland just they came in with so many negatives coming into the game. And the other thing for Cleveland before we move on is that they got 2 more years of fully guaranteed money at $45 million a year with Watson.
Hmm.
It's bad.
That's a tough one, right? It's like you're married to that. What are you gonna
And
do?
all, yeah, and all those Eagle fans who wanted Watson, yeah, you sure? There were a lot of them. People were pissed that the Eagles didn't get Watson.
They
It
were.
ain't
That's
happening.
right. I remember that. All right. Let's take a quick look at the Falcons here, the Eagles' next opponent Monday night. And before we do that, we will pause to hear a word from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam just sent you. You will get a great deal. If not, you can visit them at SkyMotorCars.com.
Right.
So the Falcons are also on a new offensive coordinator. And if you were going to compare how the Eagles looked with their new offensive coordinator versus the Falcons and their new offensive system,
Oh,
night and day. Night and day. So we'll see if I think the Falcons are going to need some time there. I mentioned this in the last pod, I think, that you're seeing Kirk Cousins in the shotgun now in the Shanahan style offense a lot. And when he was with Minnesota, he was under center quite a bit. So you wonder if that's going to be a really difficult transition or if it was just a week one thing for him.
so what happened there was that J.J. Watt lost 2 sacks due to penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The touchdown that Atlanta got, it was, I think, if I recall correctly, Pittsburgh had a turnover, but they got it called back, and then Atlanta would score. So they couldn't do anything offensively. Atlanta turned the ball over 3 times. Now Kirk has played in this. He's played in a West Coast offense with Minnesota, so it's nothing new to him. They're not all the same the way that they call it, but the terminology is exactly the same. It's the verbiage system. So they're another team that could not get anything going. Bijan Robinson led them in receiving. That's not what you were looking for. Yes, you liked him to be involved in the pass game, or the Smith on the other side with Pittsburgh. He couldn't figure it out with Bijan last season. And as I mentioned when we did the Monday show, Ray McLeod led them. He led all of them with 52 yards. That's not what you're looking for. And the reason why McLeod's their 3 is Rondell Moore's out for the season with a knee injury, who was going to be their 3. Remember, they traded for him. They acquired him via trade from the Cardinals. So that hurt them. There's no question about it. They need a 3. Their offensive line is back. All 5 starters are back for Atlanta. You wouldn't know it, by the way, that Pittsburgh brought the heat. That's a good thing. If you're the Eagles, you like that.
I think Atlanta kind of gets credited for having one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. I guess because they have a lot of first-round picks and guys who've signed contract extensions. Every time I watch them, Adam, I feel like they are a good run blocking line, but not a very good pass protection line. I just don't get the sense that they're as good at pass pro as some of the better, like as the Eagles and the Cowboys and some other teams that have pretty good tackles and pretty good offensive lines.
Yeah, and they just don't have any. If someone gets hurt, they have very little depth, so they've
Mhm.
got a problem. They could not get anything going. I give Tomlin and his defensive staff credit. I mean, they got after it. And Terrell Austin has been around forever.
Mhm.
Remember him from the Lions as a D coordinator. So they did a great job. They have by the way, the Steelers, their front was so good. Their front seven was so good in this game. And of course, they added Patrick Queen, which is huge.
Yeah.
I know they're excited about Peyton Wilson, but they're playing an undrafted free agent in nickel. The Steelers are because Cam Sutton, who they brought back after what happened in Detroit, he's going to be their nickel when he's not suspended, when he gets off suspension, and
Mhm.
they got away with it. I was a little surprised. I picked the Falcons in that game. I thought they'd come out. You never know about week one. You got to be careful. This is a team that I don't think, in fact, I don't think they'll be bad, though I picked the Bucks to win the division. It's just week one. They just didn't play well. Their defense was put in a tough spot. Fields, is going to run. He ran the ball 14 times. It's not what you want, but he doesn't let plays develop very much. But I'll say this: he had great chemistry with Pickens.
Yeah.
That was there. In fact, they should have had it. They had a couple other plays they just missed, so that was there. But overall, Atlanta is dangerous. This is a matchup. If they could protect Cousins, as you were talking about, you don't want this to be a Kirk Cousins game where he goes off. He's always capable.
Oh yeah, yeah. Even in some losses, he's had some good games against the Eagles. He's had some in some wins going back to his time with Washington, but he's always tough. And then just to go back real quick to our conversation, now because it just came to my head now about where you play Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, Kyle Pitts is, if he's back and looking good, he had a touch. I do think, yeah, he had a touchdown in week one. If you're thinking, all right, I really want Quinyon Mitchell outside, but I'm really scared of Avonte Maddox against Kyle Pitts. Then maybe Vic thinks for this week, while we're still nursing Cooper DeJean back, maybe it is smart to get Mitchell on the inside in nickel matched up against Pitts, and then try to live with, if Rodgers is healthy, Rodgers against Mooney, which similar size and speed type matchup there. As long as
Mooney's really
Rodgers,
Mooney's really small. He's like 5'9".
So is Rodgers. That's what I said. Same size speed.
Oh, you said Rodgers. I'm sorry. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Rodgers comes in to play the outside, and Mitchell moves inside on Pitts. Is what my point was. You're not really losing much on the outside if you're getting Rodgers versus Mooney.
The good thing for the Eagles is they're so deep in the defensive secondary. They can do whatever they want. It's a cool thing to know. Now, again, that's with as you mentioned, Rodgers, once he's healthy, so he gets cleared. They're just. I was just stunned at how I get the Steelers. They're really good defensively, but man, the Atlanta was totally inept, completely inept on offense. Zach Robinson's their new OC. You got to give him time. It's only week one, and I know Raheem Morris. He knows the Eagles. He's the former Rams defensive coordinator. So now, of course, he hasn't seen them with this new offense, though.
Right? Wasn't he also with Washington when they had? He was with Washington for a little while after his Tampa Bay, after he was fired from Tampa Bay. I think he was on the same staff with when McVay, O'Connell, and Shanahan were there under Jay Gruden. Right. I think he was on the defensive staff.
Sounds right. But yeah. I talked. When did I see Raheem? I saw him at the owners' meetings. Yeah, I'm so glad that he got another chance. He was just too young. Yep. He's in his early 30s, but this offense has a chance to be really good if they could protect. And I'm interested to see what Fangio brings here. I'm really interested to see what he does. We'll talk more about this when we break it down. We're going to look into this, what their defense looked like in week one against Pittsburgh. But Raheem's a really creative. I was really surprised at how well they did last year. Atlanta's defense, the Rams secondary, because they weren't very good at corner, but they kind of overachieved. So I'm really interested to see what happens.
There you go. All right, so that's it. We've gone through the injuries, the transactions. We've looked around the division a little bit, and then looked ahead to the Falcons. So the next time you're hearing from Adam and I, it'll be the Inside the Birds pregame show, and Greg Cosell will be with us. And of course, that'll come out on Monday morning. Actually, the next time you hear from us is going to be our Friday pod. I should say that.
Game breakdown.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah. Well, in fact, we'll have a lot of injury information on both teams, not just one. Whatever we'll go inside and give you what we know and what we hear and any potential lineup changes. So this will be a fun one. And man, unless the weather changes, looks like we're gonna have really good weather the next week or so. We've had, God, it's just we're in like a drought, man. We're not getting any rain. We need the rain.
No. Listen, we had so much rain from
In
January
the
to
spring, I know, in
May.
the spring. But
my
man,
lawn is still soggy, dude, man. Like, I don't
mine
need
is
any more
not.
rain.
Like we had trees cut down, but that was not cheap. If anyone's ever had it done, you
Oh,
know,
I know. Yep.
terrible. But it had to get done, and all of a sudden now our grass is dry, and we thought that, you know, we need some rain here. You know, in fact,
Right.
my wife's away, so I got to water all the tree. We had new trees planted, and I got to water the trees and flowers and stuff. So it's I'm not a green thumb, to say the least. I'm a bad thumb anyway.
Nice. All right. Well, listen, I always feel like September, there's still a few beach weekends left as long as the weather is nice and the weather's
Beautiful.
warm. So I'm going to hold off
Yeah.
on that rain and let it come in October and
There
November.
you go.
But that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation.